Have you ever really stopped to think about how we learn the difference between right and wrong? I mean, is it something that's drilled into us, like times tables, or is it something that just grows? Well, today we're going to dive into the incredible work of psychologist Jean Piaget, who found out the answer is way more surprising than you might think.
Piaget's real genius was using these really simple, everyday scenarios to get at some deep, complex truths. So let's start with one of his most famous questions. Take a second and really think about it. Who's the naughtier kid here?
Believe it or not, your answer, and especially a child's answer, holds the key. It unlocks this profound secret. Our moral compass isn't something that's just handed to us. It's something we have to build ourselves, piece by piece.
So where did Piaget figure all this out? Not in some sterile laboratory, that's for sure.
Nope, he went to the muddy schoolyards of Switzerland, where he found the very first clues to our moral development in, of all things, a simple game of marbles. So Piaget just started watching kids play marbles, and he noticed something fascinating. For the youngest kids, the rules weren't just guidelines. Oh no. They were sacred, absolute laws that were handed down from some higher power, like their dad or their grandfather, or even God himself. And this is where you see the first huge difference. For kids under 10, rules are forever. Changing one feels like a serious crime. But then you look at the older kids, and their whole understanding has shifted. They get that rules are just social contracts, made by kids, for kids, to make the game fair. They know you can change them as long as everyone playing agrees to it. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly captures that early mindset. When a 5-year-old named Lay was asked if you could change a rule, his answer was just incredible. He said no. God would make the little boy's shot not reach the marbles. To him, the rules of a schoolyard game were literally tied into the fabric of cosmic justice. Amazing. So this belief in absolute, unchangeable rules leads to a very specific way of judging people's actions. It creates what Piaget called the very first stage of morality, and it's all about consequences. Piaget gave this stage a name, moral realism. And really what it means is that at this age, a kid judges an act not by the why, but by the what. The intention behind it? Totally irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the outcome, the amount of stuff that got broken. Which brings us right back to our cup puzzle. You've got story A, where a kid with good intentions accidentally makes a huge mess, 15 broken cups. And then story B, where a kid with bad intentions makes a tiny mess, just 1 broken cup. So who's naughtier? For most of us adults, the answer is totally obvious. But for a little kid in that moral realism phase, the logic is just different. When one child was asked who deserves the bigger punishment, he said, me, because I broke more than 1 cup. It's simple math for them. Intentions are invisible, but 15 broken cups, well, that's a disaster you can see. But then, something really amazing starts to happen. As the child grows up, plays more, argues more, they discover this whole new moral universe. And this leads to the second morality, one that's all about intentions.
Let's look at another one of Piaget's dilemmas, but this time about lying. So, what's worse? A completely wild, unbelievable tall tale, or a totally plausible lie that's designed to trick someone to get what you want?
A young child will almost always say the story about the giant dog is the worst lie. Why? Because it's more untrue. It's just factually impossible. But older kids, they see it totally differently. They look at lie B and they spot something much more serious, the deliberate choice to deceive someone who trusts you.
And this is just perfectly summed up by 10-year-old Arl. For him, the kid who lied about his grade is way naughtier because he actually tricked his mom. The lie about the giant dog? That's not really a lie because nobody's ever going to believe it. The real crime isn't being wrong about a fact, it's the betrayal of trust.
So what causes this massive shift in thinking? Piaget called it the morality of cooperation. This is the morality that grows out of all that playing and arguing and negotiating with friends. It's through that social back and forth that kids learn rules are flexible, and they finally start to see the world from someone else's point of view.
Now, this whole shift from judging consequences to judging intentions, it completely changes how kids think about justice. It brings up this brand new question: what actually makes a punishment fair?
younger kids almost always prefer what Piaget called expiatory punishment. The goal here is simple: make the wrongdoer suffer. It doesn't have to fit the crime, it just has to be harsh. But older kids, they develop a taste for punishment by reciprocity. Here, the goal isn't pain, it's learning. The punishment is logically connected to what they did wrong. You lie, the consequence is people stop believing you. It just makes sense.
And Piaget had the data to prove this wasn't just a hunch. Just look at this chart. The preference for that more sophisticated, let the punishment fit the crime approach just skyrockets with age. Only about a quarter of 6- and 7-year-olds get it, but by age 11, it's over 80%. That is a huge developmental leap.
So what we're really watching here is a child's idea of justice growing up. It evolves from this really primitive desire for revenge into a much more rational desire for a kind of fairness that actually teaches something and helps restore the balance. Okay, so let's tie this all together. The whole moral journey, the way Piaget saw it, is really a journey from a morality of constraint to a morality of cooperation. So the whole journey starts with rules that are handed down from on high, which makes us judge things only by the mess they cause. But then, by interacting with our friends, we learn to cooperate. And that unlocks the final, most mature stage, the ability to look past the mess and judge an action by the intention behind it.
And this is Piaget's most revolutionary insight, right here. Our moral compass isn't some static computer code that we just download from our parents. No way. It's a dynamic, living thing that we build ourselves, piece by piece, through all our games, our arguments, and our friendships.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last big thought. I mean, Piaget figured all this out just by watching kids play marbles almost a century ago. So the question for us is pretty clear. If cooperation is the real forge for our morality, what are the rules of the game in our modern adult world teaching us today?